Today in the news, we have a pastor using an AR-15 to encourage Christian terrorism within his congregation. Freedom from Religion Foundation, fortunately, preventing the sale of a mass amount of land to a Christian organization. And we have more sex scandals being protected by the church. Let's take a look. Okay, so first, let's jump to our first story, which is a Christian pastor aimed an AR-15 at the congregation to run out the unbelief. Keep in mind that based on the wording here, he's not just brandishing the AR-15, he is aiming the AR-15 at his congregation. Philip Thornton's stunt at Legacy Faith Church turned the teachings of Christ into a twisted sermon on violence and power. I don't know if the congregation necessarily saw that as a twisted sermon. On September 28th, Pastor Philip Thornton of Legacy Faith Church told his congregation they needed to go all out when spreading the gospel message. All out apparently means with weaponry. To illustrate his point, he strapped an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle on his chest and proceeded to aim it directly in their faces. So that is assault. I'm not sure if you know, but assaults and battery are two different types of charges. You can actually be charged for assault just by threatening somebody with a weapon. So that's assault, I would say. You're not supposed to point guns at people. I think most people who are good gun owners know that already. Jesus cleared the room. He put them all out. He went in like a soldier. Kingdom of heaven suffers violence. Now, don't worry. The light's bright, right? There's nothing in the gun. Hands off the trigger, right? Light's bright. Lasers there. I can get any one of you. Wow. He had to target the unbelief. He had to get rid of the unbelief that was filling the room. He had to clear the room. You have to learn how to clear a room in faith. Okay. At another point in the sermon, which is still online for some reason, thank you, Friendly Atheist, by the way. This is his newsletter. Please subscribe to him. Thornton encouraged the congregation to overwhelm your enemy with a violent action of faith. So just the other week, I was being, I guess, talked down to by Christians who said I was, picking favorites. Why not attack Islam when, it's much worse than Christianity? Is it that much worse, though? I mean, we look at this is something that a pastor thought was okay to do. And does he still have this job? Let's read to the end and find out. Please understand, this is a principle that needs to be employed when you use your faith. You have to overwhelm your enemy with a violent action of faith. So there it is, directly encouraging his congregation to use violence. I guess you might tow this away as a Christian. You might say, no. This is metaphorical. He's just giving a point to illustrate an image. It's not literal violence. Okay, then why did he need an AR-15 to demonstrate that point? It's just a really strong symbol. It's a really strong image. But the thing is, though, with the actual theological beliefs of Christians, it's not just like a fandom where they're really passionate about the beliefs and values of something an author is trying to say. And they're not, like if you're the fan of, I don't know, Game of Thrones, you're not literally going to go and murder people and try to take over their bloodline, right? Or if you're, a really big fan of, Breaking Bad, you're not going to literally try and start, like a drug empire. The difference with Christianity is, though, they literally believe that this is even more important than their actual lives, their religion, because it takes a step greater than that, which is their afterlife. They think that there is an eternity beyond and after what they're doing now. And so anything within this world is only privy to that eternity. So yeah, it's all justified. It's all fair game. And there's plenty of stories in the Bible that talk about killing for God, right? The whole idea of the religion is in fact a blood sacrifice. Jesus' sacrifice, which was meant to count for all of humanity. And we apparently have our entire existence birthed on this idea of continuous sacrifice. And the goal of Jesus was to end that with his final literal bodily sacrifice. So violence and Christianity go hand in hand like spaghetti and it's Italy. I almost said Italia. But I'm not Italian, unfortunately. That would be a cultural appropriation to my Italian friends. When that wasn't enough, he brought along a scene partner. I guess it wasn't enough. Maybe just the sermons are just so boring they have to go to these lengths. With an assault-style rifle and act it out as bizarre biblical fantasy. Well put, Friendly Atheist. When soldiers go into a room, it wasn't just one person knocking on the door saying, "Hello, everybody, I came to meet everybody." They came in force, one fluid movement, right? Step to step, interlocked wherever they went, understanding which direction. They understood how to pass instructions forwards and backwards. They didn't have to talk about it, but when they entered a room, they continued to move in that direction. So more here, this is where the body of Christ could learn some lessons, because one fluid movement is what God is after. So I guess the point here is to illustrate that you need to move as a kind of like a biomass. Think whatever sci-fi you're familiar with, where it's like a bunch of different organisms that kind of move as like one thing. We just want you to be like a cog in a machine that doesn't think for oneself, but instead, moves in this fluid motion. So great. Preaching violence is necessary to promote faith, and then preaching, just be one cog in the machine that moves for the Lord. Elsewhere in this, so we'll just read a lot. I don't want to, if you want to read the full depths of this article, I would encourage you to go to the Friendly Atheist webpage and continue to read more there about that. But that is just the level of insanity. And I want to jump here to the end. So at least some members of the congregation were disturbed by the chosen prop. That is a good testament that there are still people who are sensible and religious. But I do think, though, that the idea of religion itself pulls one away from sensibilities, and the further one tends to meander into religious thought, they lead to this more psychotic state where they think it's acceptable to point guns at a congregation. This is deeply disturbing, irresponsible, and irreverent. It points to a sick congregation led by sick leadership. So it sounds to me like this a pastor still has their job, and they are still continuing to work where they are. Let's see. Yeah, so it doesn't sound like they are. Yeah, they're not. Let's see. They posted a statement. Let's take a gander here. Okay, we're going to go out into the world. Okay, it's taking me to Facebook. Oh, perfectly formatted too. Excellent. The message, great. Okay, so this isn't even like the deep south. This is PA is Pennsylvania, correct? So we're in like moderate America. This isn't just like some super conservative part of context matters. So apparently there's context where it's okay to point a gun at a congregation. Thank you for seeking clarity, the recent message. So this pastor is not just forgiven and allowed to continue to preach and allowed to still have his job. And even at the same congregation, the Facebook official page of the congregation of the church has promoted a statement in which they're defending the actions of the pastor and are happy for the attention this incredibly disturbing sermon has garnished. So I think you can see the level of just dissonance. And there's I'm sure you've heard the term before, cognitive dissonance, right? Where you have you have one idea that your brain runs a certain way, and then you have another idea, and they're just clashing with each other. But you're able to compartmentalize that, so you can have that cognitive dissonance. Anyway, like imagine if you're an ancient historian and you're also a fundamentalist Christian, right? And the part of ancient history you study is Neanderthals. You study Neanderthal history, which is from, as I'm aware, hundreds of thousands of years ago, at least, if not more. I'm not a paleontologist. I don't know off the top of my head. But there are, just because of the massive influence of Christianity everywhere, there are Christian paleontologists who study Neanderthal history. That's cognitive dissonance, right? Obviously, if you study the history of human-related species and you're a fundamentalist Christian, your beliefs are at odds with one another, because you directly see that there is evolution at play. There is the natural selection of species at play, that the Earth is not a young Earth model. It makes no sense whatsoever. Yet you believe in the truth of Christianity, which preaches the opposite. So you have to kind of marry the two. You either just ignore the dissonance there, or you create an answer for yourself that works, i.e., I remember once I had a teacher in my Christian high school where she taught ancient history, and she said at the first day at the Christian high school, in my like advanced ancient history class. She said like, and just think if this is kind of weird for you, just think God made humans to become this way, right? So she's like God guided evolution was her kind of cajoling of Christianity into her own life as a historian or history teacher. So you can always have some cognitive dissonance to have this, but this is more than cognitive dissonance. This is just like dissonance with societal norms within themselves, right? The fact that they think that this is a normal thing to do, that this is an acceptable thing to do, and that, you know what, all of the haters gonna hate, keep going on anyway, is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane, and this is the thing. This is the amazing thing about religion, is that only with a deep belief in religion that you're able to do something like this. Say context matters when you are talking about the actions of a pastor, which include pointing a gun at a crowd of people. Thank you. To downplay and say they're not like concerned congregation members who fear for their lives and are deeply, troubled, perhaps even traumatized if they're like a veteran, right? By the extremely inappropriate usage of arms. No. That was simply seeking clarity. It's like corporate speak almost with how sanitized they are in presenting this. Makes abundantly here. Oh, see, here it is. It was a prop. It's a prop, guys. Come on, stop. Guys, you're crazy. It's a prop. But it wasn't a prop. It's a literal gun. He's just saying he's using it as a gun. See, firing pin removed, cleared, and publicly shown to be ammo-free. It's okay, guys. Come on. Anyway, use violence to promote faith is what they're going for. And this is an enemy of faith. The teaching for believers was intended to encourage spiritual violence towards unbelief and the lack of faith, not towards people. Okay, so this is the one point where they're saying it's not violent, right? It's okay. See, it's towards unbelief and the lack of faith, not towards people. Okay, let's use some basic critical thinking here. How can you be violent towards unbelief? What does that even mean, right? You can be violent towards physical things. I can understand that, right? You're violent towards people. You punch somebody. Okay. You can be violent towards other objects like vandalism, right? How can you be violent towards unbelief? You're being violent towards a concept. What does that entail? What is that? How can you be violent towards something that's not physically present, right? Because unbelief, and unbelief is like a doubly not physically present thing, right? Because it's just saying it's the negation of belief, right? So if you're violent towards belief, that already hardly means anything. But if you're violent towards unbelief, that's even less sensical. But the weird like groupthink and framing as this is a completely normal thing. Like, come on, guys. For believers, obviously, it's just violence towards unbelief and lack of faith, not towards people. Okay? And then what is the difference between regular violence and spiritual violence? Now, it doesn't even compute anymore. So if it's something is spiritual something, is it just not a physical thing? And for all of us humans who don't understand what you mean by like a spiritual blank or like a religious blank and how that's necessarily different from a physical blank, what does that even mean? What is spiritual violence? Is it just like praying really hard at somebody? And so you're like, I'm just going to pray for you to jump off a cliff, but not you, for your unbelief to jump off a cliff. Is that what that means? This is a nonsensical statement, right? But think to the core of this, though. What holds unbelief? Like, if you wanted to stop people from having unbelief, right? How would you change the unbelief? You can't, right? You can't change the unbelief because that's the thing a person holds. What you would change is the person. So you have to do violence against the person is what they're saying. But they're trying to say it's not towards people. Otherwise, this is a completely nonsensical phrase, though. So I would like, if Legacy Faith Church ever decides to look at Forever Sophist here, hello, and respond to this, which I doubt they will, please explain to me in plain English, what does it mean to encourage spiritual violence towards unbelief and the lack of faith? That sentence makes absolutely no sense, and it sounds to me like you're just jumping around the fact that your pastor is an absolute psychopath. Let's look at the next story. So, Freedom from Religion Foundation helped prevent Knoxville Sweetheart Land deal to religious group. So this is a good story. We have a good story in the middle to balance us out. The president, the Freedom from Religious Foundation, is pleased to see that the city of Knoxville has heeded its advice in shelving the sale of a public land to a religious organization. That's good to hear. A concerned Knoxville resident reported that the city was considering a proposal to sell 12.7 acres of Chillouette Park. 12.7 acres is a lot of land, to the Emerald Youth Foundation. It's a very suspect name. A religious organization which is explicitly a Christian NPO whose mission is to raise up a large number of urban youth to love Jesus Christ and become effective leaders who help renew their communities. Okay, and the cool thing about these Christian communities is that they all have these lukewarm mission statements that sound nice when you don't think about them too critically. But the mission statement isn't to, like help stop poverty. It isn't meant to help, communities, escape their unfortunate circumstances. The first thing they say here is to raise up urban youth to love Jesus Christ. So what that means is, instead of money going towards food drives, it goes towards Bibles, it goes to Christian ministries. So that's where I think is, if you're not religious, if you're not Christian religious even, you would be opposed to money going to these. But they might have like charitable activities within the organization, and I'm sure I'll find out more about them here. But the thing is, they're always used as a justification and not the actual sole purpose of the religion. And I think this is worth a video in and of itself of how charity within Christian organizations is almost always tokenism, in that, we are a Christian nonprofit. We want to support communities grow in Christ and help the world around us, as Jesus calls us to. Now, if there are actual organizations that really do just focus on communities in tragedy, right? Being first aid responders, giving food, water, shelter, healthcare, whatever, all of these things, and that's it, then that's great. And I will support all of those communities. And there are some that are founded by Christians or are originally Christian in nature, that exist, but that are successful NPOs. But the most that I'm aware of, like Doctors Without Borders, are secular organizations that do humanitarian aid and things like that. The faux humanitarian aid of most Christian organizations, though, is just that it is faux. It is tokenism, and it is just there to cover up the main part, which is building the church itself and delivering the message of Jesus and the Bible and all of that stuff. And you can see the biggest perpetrator of this would probably be the Mormon Church. But let's find out what the Emerald Youth Foundation's story is, and I'm sure Freedom from Religion will paint a good picture here. So according to the local news, the Emerald Youth Foundation approached the city in 2022 to pitch the sale, which was a deviation from the city's usual path or major public projects. The city allegedly created the project proposal centered around the religious group's vision, implying the proposal process was not truly intended to create a fair playing field for potential bidders. The city also allowed... Okay, so this is the good point. What this means is they're basically bidding rigging, right? So they're basically wording their sale in a way where most... And when you go to public organizations or government-funded, government-built organizations, typically they're supposed to have a bid or an auction-based process that people go to tender. People have a fair way to enter. But then there's maybe with bribery, maybe with unfair access routes or whatever it may be, uncompliant and unethical practices with rigging bids, right? Which is a big issue across all sorts of work with government contractors and employers and all of that, right? And so the basically what the allegation here is that this Emerald Youth Foundation was trying to go around working with the city in an unethical way, which is not surprising for a Christian organization. But still, the city agreed to let it purchase the park for less than $1 million, and it planned to build a $20 million to $30 million recreational facility on the land. But the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the MPO here, has urged the city to nix the sale for the reason it appears the foundation's proposed recreation center will be dedicated to supporting its mission of converting Knoxville's youth to Christianity. So they're not just looking to build like a gymnasium for everybody or like a pool for everybody or like a cool park area. No, they're probably just trying to build some sort of center to convert more people to Christianity. It will be open, even if the facility will be open to non-church members. Yeah, I mean, makes sense to me. You don't need to be a church member to be a victim of being proselytized to. Regardless of any incidental secular benefits the project may produce. Excellent wording, by the way, here. Incidental secular benefits. And I think that's similar to what I was just talking about with the faux humanitarian work that lots of Christian organizations propose. That's just what this is here with incidental secular benefits. It'll be both a violation of the U.S. Constitution and the local Tennessee Constitution if it follows this public land sale that has clearly been orchestrated to specifically benefit this religious nonprofit in spite of community opposition. So it looks like that they had been successful in the pressure in that they yielded constitutionally favorable results. And so ending the discussion with a 5-4 vote. What's disturbing though, this is not an anonymous vote. And I would imagine these 4 people are, much more religious. If something is clearly going against the bidding process, if something is clearly intended for not the overall community, but specifically for a religious intention here, and going outside of the scope of what the auction or bid was intended for, that's clearly violating this, and it should be in a unanimous vote. But it looks like there's still a lot of work to do in Tennessee, but this was a step in the right direction. So always good to see it, happy to see it. Let's read the end here. The proposal to sell the land and disregard community input would have been an egregious endorsement of Christianity by the city council. Well put, and that's really great to put people in actual charge, to give them actual responsibility. If you sold this to them, that's on your hands, right? That's you are endorsing religion specifically. And that's exactly the level of directness that needs to be approached with all of these sorts of incidents. And so this is a great win to see just for ethical behavior as a whole. I feel like I want to say it's like it's a great win for the Knicks. It's a great win for so and so. No, just for like being a decent member of society. We're at that point now where even things that should be normal and like, yeah, of course you don't allow that sale to be like everything is just a morsel of that we have to take, right? But we get it. Allowing for a quick under-the-table deal to this religious organization would have been an unconscionable giveaway of valuable public lands for the benefit of a Christian missionizing organization. So that's really encouraging that this happened. So I would encourage you all actually to check out the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They're a great organization that help promote humanitarian efforts and stop overreaching and overzealous Christian groups from ruining the country even further. And so without further ado, let's get into the last story here. But before I read that, I would just like to encourage you to subscribe to this channel and interact with the content. There's also a Discord channel for you to discuss even more. I put a lot of work into analyzing and looking at the world today. And so I think it's fair to ask that if you've gotten this far and are interested in learning more, hearing more from me, to stick around for more, because at least once a month I try and put something out. I'm working on a piece of writing as well, a book that I will be looking for beta readers and an editor or two perhaps in the future. But for now, it's just my commentary on society as a whole, why I'm an anti-theist, and my encouragement to men and everybody in society to actively be against religion and to be for secular thought, and how that is the best thing we can do for our society as it stands. So let's get into this last article here. A Spokane Catholic priest accused of sexual misconduct is removed and reported to police. Parishioners criticize allegations. So everything here is completely unfortunate and completely normal, as sad as this sounds. I was just looking for pieces of religion-related news and topics to go over as it affects a society today. And these are all based in America, unfortunately. But it's just disturbing. Let me just take a step back and say the amount of sexual misconduct and child abuse, just abuse in general that is tolerated and promoted within religion and religious communities itself. Just that alone should be more than enough to make just the whole organization of religion as a whole just a social pariah, right? I feel like we should start to get into the kind of world where we view just religion as with the same level of disturbedness as we do, like when we talk about a cult of Scientology or anything to that extent, because this is normal. Unfortunate as it is to say a word next to sexual misconduct is normal, because the abuse of power is not only tolerated but promoted within religious organizations. And while of course I do not say that secular people are exempt from being terrible people, that happens all the time really in any position of power, the difference between secular and religious groups is that secular groups, at least in principle, try to keep its leaders, its people in positions of power honest. There are checks and balances, and we understand that if somebody leading a group in whatever sort of organization, whether it be a company, whether it be a social group, whether it be a community, a club, whatever it is, if that person is found doing something terrible or awful, they are ousted from the community, and in some cases the community itself is severed or just fizzled out, and that person is punished. And that's a normal thing, for a normal way for a society to respond. But even in something, in the case of this, we see the people attending criticize the allegations. So defending the bully, defending the perpetrator of these scandals. And this is something that happens normally. And what's the difference between religion and secularism when it comes to this? Again, they have a grounds in the mind of a religious person to protect these people specifically. A secular person views their leader as just that, another person who happens to lead a group, but they're not infallible. They're just another person. Whereas a religious person views a leader in a position of power within their religion as somebody summoned by God, somebody with a divine calling, with something beyond what one can understand or measure in this world, to guide you with a spiritual level. And so that means maybe some of the things that we might find odd or off-putting are just secondary, because they are spiritual fathers. They are spiritual leaders. And so what they do and say need be respected. And if something as trivial as sexual misconduct, in the eyes of some religious zealots, is taking them away, then they're not the problem. The sexual misconduct is not the problem. The society that decides to go against them is the problem. And so I'm not sure, we'll find out now as we read the article, the extent to which the parishioners criticize the allegations. But that essentially, in theory, is why and how continuous abuse gets excused within religion and within religious communities. So the Catholic Diocese of Spokane removed a priest and asked police to investigate after he was accused of misappropriation of funds. Oh, so not just sexual misconduct, of course, there is also money laundering or bribery or something of that sort, and sexual misconduct involving 6 women. So normally if you're convicted of or challenged of doing sexual misconduct with one woman, that should be enough for you to lose your job, potentially ruin your career, potentially go to jail, right? Depending if you actually, assaulted or raped somebody. But no, it took 6. Okay, just normal Catholic things, I suppose. And Catholic clergy across Spokane received a notice in April that the priest, Miguel Mejia, was accused of seeking sex from a vulnerable woman. Absolutely disgusting. So religion is already disgusting in that it abuses people and takes advantage of them in vulnerable positions. Hey, I see you're lost. I see you're hurt. Come to Jesus. Taking advantage of people and putting them into your club so that they can feel safe and secure. And also taking advantage of them for your own personal gain. So not just for the own issues of having them be a Christian and for the favor of your house or what have you. But this person is a disgusting, vile human being who takes advantage of vulnerable women in exchange for money or other items. So this is absolutely abhorrent behavior. And Miguel is a piece of shit for doing that. And I feel no remorse in saying that. This is an absolutely abhorrent thing to do, and he should be shamed. And I don't think there should be any excuse for this person, and it is good that he is removed from his position. And if you don't hold that position, you should reanalyze how you view ethics and moral understanding. And again, I get into this argument with religious people from time to time about how me, as somebody without a God, has no ground for moral or ethical frameworks or understanding or anything of that nature. No, I do, and I think my moral and ethical framework is to make the best of this world and do the best for humanity, right? And treat others how you'd want to be treated. And stand up for things that infringe upon people's basic human rights. To summarize, if you want me to put a label on it, I would say like a rule utilitarian is the kind of philosophy I subscribe to. But yeah, I will see an abhorrent behavior and say, no, that guy is acting like a absolute piece of shit, and plant my foot on the ground. But you have to play, footsie if you're a Christian or a religious person, because, well, maybe they're the leader of our own team, so to speak. And so, well, this, that, and the other, actually, let's wait before we call everything into question there. So I actually think that the Christian has much more flimsical moral grounds when it comes to judging people and judging things. Oh wow, so it comes full circle here, yeah. So he's not just like moving money around scandalously, he's moving money around to do the sexual misconduct. Wow, so that's just like, like when you cube something, it's not like 2 times 3, it's like 2 cubed, it's just like cubedly terrible. It's absolutely awful. This is wrong, and it's tragic, okay? Good criticism, but many of the former parishioners continued to support the priest and question the veracity of the evidence against him. Okay, so there you go. There it is. Because your religion indicates that this priest is a religious father figure. They are a truth teller. They speak to your heart and they give the word of God. They were chosen by God. They blessed you. Maybe they baptized your children. Maybe they baptized you. Maybe if you're an adult convert, he took you through RCIA or whatever it's called, the Catholic confirmation process, whatever. Maybe this person works with you. Maybe they come to your events. Maybe they come to a food drive. And so whatever the case is, whatever it is, in your theological heart of hearts, you believe that this person is good. He's from God, and he's there for you. And so you will stand for them, and you will deny every allegation against him and continue to support the priest. Looks like they gathered in a meeting in June, and according to a transcript, they were told Mejia would not likely be returning to the church. So that is the absolute best you can do. You say he has embezzled funds from your church to sexually misconduct 6 women in vulnerable positions. And the best you can do is say, yeah, guys, maybe he's not gonna keep working here. Sorry, guys. That's the firm answer you get out of your meeting in June. This is pathetic. This is pathetic, because in any other circumstance, any hint of embezzlement would be like, okay, let's get him out of here, right? Let's put him in review, whatever. Like, it's a company situation, right? Automatically, you're in trouble, you're demoted. And if it's confirmed, you're removed from the company. First, sniff of something that bad, right? But in the sense of a church embezzling funds, sexually abusing people 6 times, maybe they're not going to come again. I don't know. Okay. So people were, yeah. So no, turns out the allegations are credible. But even after this, people, then they had a board meeting. They said they would remove. They accepted the recommendation. 3 additional women with allegations, the board said at the meeting. Some parishioners of the church, some not, and one is reportedly in prison. Wow. So taking advantage of people really from all walks of life. These women have our sincere respect and our gratitude. Okay. So obviously, credit where credit is due. Everybody who worked against this person remaining in the church and stopping the continuous sexual misconduct and abuse of people are to be commended. But let's just say it as it is, and it is absolutely sad that you have to go through this many hoops to remove a sexual predator from a position of power. You have to have committee, you have to go through the diocese, you have to have a congregational meeting, you have to go through many steps and say, maybe we'll remove them. That's what it takes to get somebody who is using funds from your congregation to stop sexually abusing people. That's the level we're at. And that is the level it will continuously be at, if not worse, if religion continues to run its communities as it does, unchecked, unfeathered, and with the continuous idea that these people are in special positions of power that go beyond and above any sort of due diligence that one ought have normally. So I'll let you read through the Spokesman article here. I'll paste the links to all of these somewhere if you would like to check them out and read them for yourself. But I don't want to spend too much time reading over content. You can check yourself. But it looks like they were doing a financial audit and found that thousands of dollars were missing, which led to them finding there's evidence of what they were paying for. And this is disturbing too. In 10 years, there's not a flicker, not an innuendo of anything about him. So, and sometimes you hear this, right? Like people in positions of power, like you could only be a psychopath to run for president of the United States or whatever it may be. Positions of power, and this is of course not just limited to religion, but will attract people who want that power and are able to completely wear a facade of a benevolent person in the community, but at the same time do these terrible things underneath the surface here. And religion will continue to attract people to these positions because they know that they can take advantage of people. You can take advantage of people when they believe that their soul is indebted to you, right? Without any sort of logical explanation. And then the diocese is agreeing to pay $48 million to people molested by priests as part of a bankruptcy deal 2 decades ago. So this isn't, this is old news, right? This is something that they have to continue dealing with this. It is continuously discouraging, yeah. But it looks like, some of the leaders in positions of power did the right thing. They got rid of him. But it was probably annoying for them, if I'm being frank. Oh, we got another one to deal with, because this is just so common. So good that they removed a sexual predator from their community. Unfortunate that people from that community, though, doubted and gaslighted and wished that that wasn't the case, because they believed that he couldn't have done such a thing like that. So the issue, again, I will say this, preaching to the choir, that religion just allows for people to exploit others without any recourse until you can sexually misconduct 6 people while embezzling funds in your church. It's absolutely insane. And if you would hear this in any other, this is the thing is to like the level of allowed, what's the term used? Something consent, like forced consent, or I'm forgetting right now. But just the level of that right here, because you have the church, right, and then you have people in positions of power in the church, and because they're in the church, people in positions of power do unethical, immoral, terrible, awful, egregious things, but they have the church protecting them. So most of the time, they can continue to do that. And then every now and then someone will get caught, right? And more they'll be held accountable for what they're being done doing. However, in a normal circumstance, people in positions of power, yeah, they have their position of power as a piece of defense, but there isn't the church, right? There isn't the religion, the theodicy that they're holding them up above, and so they can be pulled by normal means regularly. So there's this invisible force field that stops priests from being yanked out of their positions of power much more easily than they should be. And the idea is now we've gotten to such a point where it's like, oh, it's just expected that there's going to be some rapings. It's just expected that there's going to be some molestations here and there, right? It's gotten to the point where it's been normalized for me to look at the front page of whatever sort of news outlet and see that there was another example of sexual allegations or misconduct in the church or what have you, and not even notice it, not even react to it, because it's been normalized just from the disgusting, huge quantity of cases like this. So that will continue to happen, and that's why it is continuously necessary to be a broken record when it comes to speaking out against religion. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more commentary and content like this, and I will see you guys next time.